Welcome to the webinar. The webinar will begin shortly. Welcome to the webinar. The webinar will begin shortly.
Hello everyone and welcome to this innovation feature. My name is John Howarth and I'm the moderator for the presentation, which is entitled Severn Trent Water's AMP7 Pump Strategy, presented by Liam MacInnes and Darren Hollins from Severn Trent Water. There will be a short time for question and answers at the end of the presentation. The presenters' details will be shown during the Q&A session should you wish to contact them for further information. Please post your questions using the Q&A button in Microsoft Teams. We will deal with as many questions as we can within the available time. Thank you, and I would now like to hand over to Liam MacInnes of Severn Trent Water. Liam, can you share your screen, please?
Hello everyone. Thank you for taking the time to listen to our presentation today. As John mentioned, we're going to take the opportunity to talk around our pump strategy. And I'm Liam MacInnes. I'm Category Manager for Severn Trent and manage all of our pumps and statutory asset framework and procurement requirements for the business. Moving on to my contents. Moving on to the content slide. Apologies, a bit of a lag there. First of all, we'll give you a brief overview of Severn Trent in our area, a high-level view of our AMP7 plan, an overview of the Severn Trent pump strategy, a review of failures on our Archimedes screw pumps, and an open question to attendees. And finally, my colleague, who's also on the call, Darren Hollins, will take you through the design standard strategy for Severn Trent and levelling up as an expert client. Moving on to the next slide. So who are Severn Trent? Severn Trent is one of the largest of 10 regulated water and sewage companies in England and Wales. We provide high quality services to more than 4.3 million homes and businesses in the Midlands. Also included in our portfolio is Hafren Dyfed. It's the coming together of Dee Valley Water and Severn Trent to form a new water service for our customers in Wales. Severn Trent provides water and wastewater services to a proportion of England, and Hafren Dyfed provides water services to parts of Wales. On the map on the right, you'll see the areas in the white indicate the areas covered by Severn Trent, and the areas in the green are the areas covered by Hafren Dyfed. Moving on to the next slide. So, what is AMP7? The water industry has 5-year investment cycles. This began back in April 2020, and we began our 7th Asset Maintenance Plan 7, which is the 7th cycle since the privatisation of the water industries in England. The regulator Ofwat reviews our plans and sets the price the customers pay, and hence how much money we have to invest back in our assets. Our AMP7 plan received fast track status, which gave us a head start in planning for AMP7, and we're now well into the way of year 1 and kicking off in year 2 now of our AMP7 plan. So what are the key drivers for AMP7? Resilience. So making sure our assets are effective, reliable, and efficient, also available for where and when we need them. So this is an evolving approach of maintenance, repair and refurbishment and replacement of our existing asset base. Cost savings. As always, we need to do more for less. So it's looking at ways we can work smarter, find ways to deliver outputs more effectively, and that's both for capital spend and operational spend. So looking at things like condition monitoring and different types of assets we can use and new technologies that are available in the market. Flexibility and agility. Our asset base is varied based off process, type, age, manufacturer and location. Hence, we can't go with a one-size-fits-all approach. So we need to look at different ways to drive the savings we need and make sure that we don't have fee-on-fee spend within our categories. So to do this, we are bringing in a wide variety of supply chain with the right mix of skills and experience to deliver all the demands of AMP7. And finally, CMEX, which is a new customer service and experience measure. The regulator will be measuring and ranking us and also you based on the customer interactions and performance across our business, and that has a knock-on effect on the pay and gain shares that we get for Severn Trent. Moving on to the next slide. So drilling into the pump category strategy. So these are some of the key focuses for me moving into AMP7. So I'm looking at condition monitoring technologies that are available in the market. At the moment, we have vibration and temperature monitoring of some of our assets across our asset base, but it's looking at what are the new types of technologies coming in and what benefits have you seen from some of the technologies that you've offered to other customers, and how can that help us to achieve the savings for Severn Trent. Calculation of the real cost for pump failures and implications with operations. So we've had a number of asset failures, and it's difficult at times to figure out what is the real cost to us as a business when a piece of equipment goes down, and what actual effect will that have. So there might be a small pump out there that, if it fails, doesn't look like it's going to cause a big issue, but due to ODIs and the actual stage that pump is put in the process, it has a massive knock-on effect on the treatment process and causes compliance failures for us, costing us penalties from the EA. So we're looking at how do we identify them small bits of kit which are process critical and make sure there's either critical spares available for it or there's condition monitoring technologies installed to support that equipment. Identification of new technologies to eliminate damages during extreme weather events. So as most of you are probably aware, last year we were hit by some extreme flooding. So that had a knock-on effect in some of our areas with equipment being damaged, whether that's hire equipment or our own equipment. So we're trying to look at different types of technologies that are available out there, such as sealed units and different types of pumps that we can use that will continue running even if there is flooding in that region and area. Driving forward rationalisation of our asset base. We have already started to do that in some areas of the pump category. So for example, in sewage submersible pumps, we're already driving forward rationalisation of our assets, but we're looking at other areas where we should be thinking about that and different types of pumps and equipment that we would have benefit from rationalisation. And finally, stock holding of critical assets and spares. So eliminating the need for squirrel stocks from individual operational teams, making sure that we have all of the critical spares and assets stored in our regional distribution centres and managed by our NRP system, so we know exactly what we've got and we can make sure it gets out to the operational teams as quickly, as efficiently as it can. Finally, I would just like to mention that since 11 PM on the 31st of December 2020, all tendering opportunities from Severn Trent will be published on the new government's UK e-notification service, Find a Tender service. So if you're interested in working with us, please make sure you're registered on this system for all the tender opportunities that will be coming up. Moving on to the next slide. So Archimedes screw pump failure. So on Archimedes screw pumps, we've had a number of failures in the past few years, with 102 aging assets across 37 sites. On these assets, we have roughly 21 types of gearboxes and 19 different types of motors. And also we have a common issue that we seem to have is the top and bottom bearings failing on these assets. So my question to you is, have you ever dealt with these types of issues with other companies? Have you developed an asset strategy with other companies to deal with these types of problems and make sure we don't have continual failures in the assets and can be more proactive in the maintenance that's required on them? Do you have any condition monitoring technologies that could reduce the asset failures of the failures on these assets? So this is over and above the temperature and vibration testing that we're already doing on some of our equipment. Is there anything new that you guys are bringing in that we may be able to use in the future? And do you have any project case studies on similar assets that you could share with us? So have you worked on similar types of assets to these screw pumps with other customers, and what was the benefit from that project that you delivered? At this point, I'm going to hand over to Darren to talk through design.
Good afternoon, everyone. Can you hear me all right?
Yeah, can hear you, Darren.
Yeah, okay, perfect. Sorry about that, everybody. Good afternoon. I work as the mechanical technical lead in design excellence within Severn Trent, and I've been working as part of the AMP7 team to help Severn Trent bring engineering in-house. So this is linked in really quite heavily with the piece that Liam's just talked about, standardising our assets, making sure that we've got the right quality and level of information that we need for our assets. First of all, obviously bringing design in-house requires recruiting of new engineers. But what we want to do is actually maximise our intelligent client function. We've got a lot of knowledge within Severn Trent that perhaps isn't always brought to bear when we're doing our designs. So we're trying to leverage that now and make sure that we can order the right assets at the right time to deliver the right outcomes for the business. Obviously, that means that we're going to own more of the design, so we're going to own more of the risk. But we feel that as a business, if we can take that strategy forward and make those informed decisions at an earlier stage of the design process, then obviously we can end up with the right assets that work for us, and not just during the installation, but over the entire asset lifetime. And the sort of analogy that I always use of this is, if you were building your own house, would you just say to a builder, here's £100,000, go and build me a house, I'll see you in 6 weeks? Or would you actually give him a bit of a steer of what you want? I'd like 2 windows, I'd like a door, I'd like a roof made of tiles, that kind of thing. And that's the approach that we're taking with this. So moving on, I've put a picture there of the plug, a standardised unit, and we're kind of thinking, can we do this to a pump? I don't see why we can't. It's a humble unit, the plug, but obviously we all use them everywhere throughout the country, and it works. And the way we're attacking this, as Liam said, is we're obviously bringing in frameworks so that we've got consistent suppliers providing a rationalised number of units, but we're also undertaking a complete standards review within the company. So that includes our mechanical electrical specifications and what we term our design manuals, which is the sort of guidance documents to our designers and to our consultants and contractors to sort of identify what we as a business are looking for. Obviously, this means it's been quite a big piece of work. What we've taken is the traditional Severn Trent mechanical electrical standards, and we've worked through to adopt the WIME specifications. This is an ongoing process. We've been doing this now for about 18 months, and obviously, as you can imagine, each phase takes time. But we've adopted all of the pump specifications from WIME, so that action is complete. So what you should get now is a WIME specification from Severn Trent, which should be consistent. So all of our supply chains doing the same things, same level of information on every individual project. And then also any specific addendums. So we've tried to adopt the WIME specs sort of carte blanche wherever possible. Obviously, there are minor modifications that are Severn Trent specific, and those are included in an addendum, or if indeed there's a supplier-specific addendum related to the framework. So all of that information is now in one place for all of our designers and indeed all of the supply chains are offered. So what we're hoping is that this bakes in Severn Trent's working practices throughout the supply chain, hopefully will drive innovation and just remove, sort of as Liam described, the situation where we've got multiple pumps, gearboxes, motors all over the patch. What we want to move towards is, as you say, standardisation. Okay, so owning the design, owning the solution, we've recognised that in doing this, we need all of our engineers working to the same standards. So as I said, we've also updated our code of practices and our design manuals to explain to our engineers exactly what we want to do. And this is really going back to basics to make sure that everyone's doing the same thing. We're all looking at the system curves. Believe it or not, I looked at a project a couple of years ago and they selected a pump without even drawing a system curve. I don't even know how that's possible, but it was done and it didn't work, unsurprisingly. So we're now baking into our standards the minimum requirements that people need to undergo when they're undertaking a pump selection. All of our designers are going to work to the new pump selection tool which we've developed, which is clear. It's obviously all the formulas are well known and tried and trusted, but now we're all working to the same sheet, so all the outputs will always be consistent. Hopefully this will deliver efficiencies and obviously value to our supply chain, because they should get used to seeing the same offerings on Severn Trent. Should always be immediately the thing that we're looking for. Is this a perfect solution? No, it's like the unicorn you see in your picture, or indeed the Loch Ness Monster. It doesn't really exist. We've still got the age-old problems that obviously contractors are incentivised by CapEx. We're trying to drive whole life cost solutions, and the two, there's always a bit of a conflict that we've got to manage as engineers and as professionals to ensure the best outcome. What we have done though, and what we would say, is that engineers have now got the right tools and the right information to specify the right solution. So we should see more consistent solutions and more robust solutions coming out of Severn Trent as we move forward into AMP7. And that's it from me. Thank you very much for listening.
Okay. So that's our slide pack. Apologies, we ran through that a bit faster than originally anticipated, but I don't know if we can open up for questions now, John.
Yeah, guys. Yeah, no problem at all. Let me just pull the first question off the system. Yeah. Are Severn Trent comfortable with cloud-based storage of condition-based storage data, or are you more comfortable with local storage capabilities given the possible security issues?
So at the moment, that's going to be a question that we would need to discuss further with our IT department. We don't use cloud-based systems as a rule. We would rather have the data stored in-house on our own systems, and any asset data that we're recording or condition-based technology we would look to have in-house. But it is something that we could discuss further with our IT security team to understand what protection you have in place, if that's compliant with our IT requirements, and if there is enough security in place, it's something that we could consider going forward. Okay,
thanks, Liam. Very specific question here from Mark. Where on Severn Trent Water's systems are the WIME sheets with your amendments?
Possibly one for you there, Darren.
Yeah, that's okay. Yeah, so those documents are they're all located on iDocs as they have been throughout the last AMP. I believe they've also been uploaded onto a site as well, but I will have to check that just to confirm. But they are still all available on the iDoc system as they have been for the last sort of probably 10 years now. And if you go onto the Severn Trent iDocs page, the home landing page, the first link there, coloured in green, it's bright green in the middle of the page, so you can't miss it, is a list of all the recently updated specs. So that's obviously a rolling list that updates daily. So if you're unsure if any have been updated or when some are due, that's the place to go and check.
Thanks, Darren. Next question, will the pump selection tool be shared with the supply chain?
Okay, yeah, no, that's a good question. We haven't got any plans to do that at the moment. At the moment, that's an internal tool, and not because there's any clever IP or anything like that baked into it. It's more about blurring any contractual lines. So if Severn Trent can obviously pay a consultant to do a piece of work, then normally that consultant will be will carry their own design liability. If we start insisting that you use our tools, we kind of blur the lines with that a little bit. So at the minute, we don't have any plans for that. If that's something that supply chain would like to see, I'm sure we can discuss it with Liam and other people in our commercial team to see if we can come up with an arrangement to make that work for everybody.
Thanks, Darren. Yeah, good one. I've got a question here from Eddie. What pumps are on your selection tool, and does it include dosing pumps?
Okay, so not specifically dosing pumps at the moment. So we could add dosing pumps. There's no reason why not. But essentially, what that tool does is produce an array of system curves for different KS values. So you can plot them all on a multiple chart and get the full pump operating envelope, again with a range of static levels as well. So you can turn those curves on and off to aid with your pump selection. So you can sort of show all of the data and sort of have 6 or 7 system curves with your pump curve overlaid, or you can look at one system or curve in particular. Obviously the system covers variable speeds and that as well. And the pump information, the pump input's actually just a manual input. So we would obtain the information from the supply chain and just insert the data points for the plot. And then we can obviously manipulate it therein. So there's no reason that it couldn't be used for dosing pumps, but that's not what it's been written for specifically at this time.
Okay, thanks, Darren. Yeah, a question from Mark, and again, it refers to the pump selection tool. When is your pump selection tool available? And I think you alluded to the fact that at the moment it's not available to it's only available internally within Severn Trent. Is that correct?
That's correct, yeah. Again, like I say, if people want to discuss this, then please email me afterwards, and I've been more than happy to take this up with commercial. And assuming there's no issues, like I say, there's no clever IP or anything, it's just a tool to help engineers. And obviously, if it's a benefit to Severn Trent for people to use it and they think it's good, we're more than happy to sort of share it, but I would need to get those permissions. So please email me and we can take that conversation offline.
Yeah, currently, Darren, we've got Liam's email address on screen. So if I guess anybody emailed Liam, he could forward on anything to you if that's okay.
Yeah, that's fine, John. Just yeah, drop an email to me. I'll forward it on to Darren and support the discussions.
Okay, another question here that again talks about the selection tool. How does the supply chain align its selection to suit the pump selection tool if we don't know what the drivers are behind it?
Okay, yeah, that's a good question. So the pump selection tool really, in some respects, the drivers are irrelevant. All that tool is used for is selecting the best pump to deliver the duty that you're looking for. It's not looking at the cost of the pump or anything like that. It's literally a technical tool, for want of a better description. In terms of the supply chain, I'd expect them to do that anyway. So I would expect that all of our supply chain are selecting the correct pump for the duty, not just the cheapest pump, shall I say. But I would say that from my experience, I've seen a different level of rigour go into the pump selections from different people in the supply chain, and that's why we've drafted the design manual, which now clearly states what we expect our consultants and contractors to do. So there is a minimum level of information that you should provide as our supply chain to allow a pump selection to be completed, and that's all detailed within the design manual now.
Okay, the next question is from Trevor, and it says, can we just email Liam with the information he has requested?
Yeah, just drop me an email and I'll pick up on that, have a review of it, and if it's of interest to us as a company, I'll be in touch. Excellent,
thank you. I think we've got 3 more questions, so we're okay for time, I think. This one's from Brian. Would there be benefit to Severn Trent Water in direct procurement of main components, i.e. pumps and MCCs, as you've already carried out the selection and pre-specification?
So that is something that we are looking to do. So we do have tier 2 contracts in place. So we, as I mentioned, we're looking to become an expert client, which as Darren's involved in the upskilling and improvement of our design manuals, we're also bringing on board lots of design engineers to bring a lot of these projects back in-house and do them ourselves. So as a procurement function, we've been increasing the number of frameworks that we hold and allowing that direct procurement for our design teams in Severn Trent and using client training agreements to make sure that all of our framework tier 1s are using the contractors on our frameworks. So it is something that we're doing. MCCs isn't under my category, so it isn't something I have specific involvement with, but it's certainly something we're doing on pumps at the minute, and offer a wide range of pumps and selections for both water and waste across the business for all of our teams.
Thanks, Liam. Right, the next question is from Z-Ray, and they ask, is there any plan to standardise bigger MCCs similar to you have ME20A and ME20B for small pumping stations?
So again, MCCs isn't something I cover, so it's not something I can really comment on. Standardization is a key driver for the pumps category. I can't really speak for MCCs because I don't know the complexity and investment that's required to run them assets.
Okay, yeah, fair enough.
I think that's something we could take away, John, and I could ask my electrical colleagues and see what their view is on that, and then provide an update if Zero leaves his details or sends an email in.
Yeah, no problem. If you can send an email address into us, that would be great, and we'll pass it on to Darren for a response. Right, last couple of questions. Do the complete supply chain have access to iDocs?
So I'm going to say I believe the answer is yes. If you're on our supply chain, no. You know what? It's a good question. I'll have to take that away, John, and confirm.
Okay, no problem.
Yeah.
And again,
you need a Severn Trent login to get into iDocs, I believe. So most of our supply chain will have that facility, but there may be some suppliers working for, let's say, a tier 1 or tier 2 that may not have direct access. So the sort of contractual route would be for the tier 1 to provide the relevant specifications, obviously, to their subcontractors. But I will double check and see if they're hosted anywhere else that the supply chain would be able to access. But I think the correct contractual path would be we ask our tier 1s or tier 2s to procure something for, let's say, pumps for this instance. And if they engaged a subcontractor, then they would provide the specifications down the supply chain.
Yeah, so just picking up on that one, yeah, our tier 1s have access to iDocs, so all of our tier 1s will have access to our existing specifications. If there is a particular standard or spec that the guys need to work to, then they're able to share that with them. Likewise, our internal design teams can share that with them as well. So we won't be given access to our full supply chain into iDocs. Just simply, as Darren mentioned, you need to have a Severn Trent login, and then it needs to be a specialist for that particular area. So it isn't really feasible for us to do that, but it's easy enough for us to share them documents with you when required.
Excellent. Thanks, Liam. Right, last question, everybody. And the question is, are you reviewing specifications around instrumentation, monitoring and telemetry for pump sets going into AMP7?
Okay, so that's an easy answer. The answer is yes. We're actually reviewing the entire suite of Severn Trent mechanical and electrical standards. I don't know exactly where those particular standards fall on the programme. Obviously, this is a a rolling programme. We've got a couple of hundred specifications to work through. But if the individual who's asked the question wants to email in, I can look where that is on the programme and maybe give a bit of a time frame of when that update would come.
Okay, that's brilliant, Darren. So any of the questioners who would like some follow-up, if you can just kind of contact Liam on his email address there, then he will pass on the relevant questions to Darren, and hopefully he'll be able to provide some updated answers. That's all we've got time for in the Q&A. So all that's left for me to do is to thank both Liam and Darren, and thank you all for attending. So I'm now going to put up a slide that kind of highlights what is coming in the next session. So just bear with me. Yeah, there's the thank you to Liam and Darren. Thanks, guys. We've got you again tomorrow. I think you're repeating this session at I think is it 10 o'clock tomorrow? So again, I'm sure you'll pick up lots of questions, and thanks again, everybody. Cheers, guys. Thank you.
Cheers. Bye.
Bye for now.